Welcome back to day 7. In this segment, I want to talk about prioritizing key threats. In the last segment, we talked about identifying them. And it's not uncommon for us to uncover anywhere from 40 to 60 issues or threats to an organization. Now listen, there's no way we're going to deal with 60 issues or 40 issues. What we want to do is we want to hone them down to the top 10. I want you to look at it sort of like the top 10 threats are what can help your organization succeed the most, and they're also the same top 10 threats that can destroy, limit, or cause your organization to decline. Most of the other threats are what I call noise. There'll always be minimal threats. We don't want to get distracted by the little issues when there are greater issues to focus on. It's sort of like an organization honing in on threats because they had a meeting, they sat down with their top leaders, and one of them has a very dominant personality, and this particular person is convinced that the only threat to focus on is this one, completely unaware of the other threats looming over here that could be 100 times worse. But because this person in this meeting has such a dominant personality, or maybe it's the boss, or maybe it's the CEO or the senior pastor, because that's the person that thinks this is the greatest threat, they're unwilling to see the other threats. It's almost like, wait a minute, your house is on fire because of these other threats and you don't even know it. So we have to have a process, a method, if you will, at taking a look at all 50, all 60 threats and putting them in the right order of priority. Here's how that works. I'm going to take 3 to 4 focus groups, as we talked about earlier, and we're going to review all 50 or 60 threats together. We're going to use a process that I've been trained and certified in. It's called FMEA or C&E matrix. And these are all fancy acronyms helping you identify the priority of threats. And rather than going into what all those acronyms mean, let me just explain it to you in simple terms. We use this thing called a rate priority number. What this does is it takes all of our threats and it puts them all in a bucket, and we're going to take them out one at a time, and we're going to rate them using this very systematic approach as a focus group. And I'm going to ask everybody in the focus group, and again, there's 5 to 10 people, and I'm going to take this one problem out of the bucket, and I'm going to say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate this issue on how much of an impact that this issue has on your organization's success. A 10 is this issue has an enormous impact, the greatest impact on our success as a church or as a business. A 1 would be this issue has very little impact on the overall success of our organization. And a 5 would be somewhere in the middle. So as I ask the question, somebody in the focus group says, oh, that's a 10, that's a 10. I know that that's a 10. My job as a facilitator is to get everybody in the focus group's wisdom out on the table. So here's how I do that. I say, listen, you've all heard what this person said. Do you all agree that it's a 10? If you all agree, I will write down 10, the number 10. It's the greatest threat to the organization. We rated that threat. If one of the people in the focus group says, no, that's not a 10, that's a 5. As a facilitator, I'll say, guys, listen, 10 and 5 are quite a ways apart. As a group, you have to sort this out. And until you all agree with the rating number of this threat, I'm not going to write down the rating number. And you guys all work here full time. You see the threats. You have the wisdom. Together you can sort this out. And this method right here is what dampens the loud and the vocal and the dominant, and it forces the quiet or the reserve to speak out. Because I'll go around the room and every single person has to contribute to this one rating number. And when they all get to an agreement, I write it down. And that's what creates buy-in, and it creates wisdom, and then one dominant personality is not driving the ship. In many cases, when they say it's a 10, everybody will agree. But in some cases, they won't, and they will all discuss it, they'll work together, and they'll adjust their numbers accordingly. That's rating number 1. Number 2, I'll say, okay, now let's look at this threat, and I want to know on a scale of 1 to 10, how often does this threat occur? 10 is all the time. Every week it's imminent. Every week it's showing up. A 1 is rare, like maybe once a year. And what I'm looking for here is frequency. First, we wanted to know the level of impact the threat has on the organization. Well, now I want to know how often is this affecting the organization. The highest number is 10. The lowest number is 1. Someone says, oh, that's a 10. That happens all the time. Does everybody agree? Yep. I write down 10. If they all agree to 7, I write down 7. The third question is, okay, so we've rated the impact, we've rated the frequency, and now I want to rate the solvability. On a scale of 1 to 10, how easy is this issue to fix? 10, very easy. 1, very difficult. Let me give you an example. If one of the issues of your organization is where you're located, whether you're a business or a church, our location is terrible. The ease of solvability to that problem isn't very high. Relocation is enormously difficult. So we would rate that a 1. But if you find out that a major threat might just simply be your receptionist is showing up late every day, or when people walk into your organization, it's not really a pleasant atmosphere, and with a few tweaks you could repair that, well, that would be a 10. It's easy to repair. What we're looking for, if you back up and look at these 3 ratings, is I want to know out of the 60 issues that we've uncovered, which ones have the greatest impact on the success of your organization, and that issue happens the most often, and it's the most repairable. We call this the low-hanging fruit that has the greatest return on investment for our focus, our time, and our energy, and our spending. And listen, in doing this for years, all the truth, all the wisdom, it all flows to the top. And it's been fascinating to watch. As I take these focus groups through the exact same process, they almost always come up with the same 10 threats. It's wisdom. It's a group effort. It's not just me coming in with a magic wand, not at all. And it's not that I don't value what leadership thinks. It's just that I'm increasing the value of what everybody else thinks. And then together, we can approach things with a little bit better of a systematic, well thought out, targeted approach. I then put all this into a report, and then I use the multiplier. What's a multiplier? So I took that threat, and let's say they said it was a 10, 10, 10. It has the greatest impact on our organization. It happens all the time, and it's very repairable. Multiply those 3 numbers together, you get 1,000. The rating of 1,000 is as high as you can get. It's the greatest threat. It needs to be addressed right away. And as we go through this process with our focus groups, you will find that many, if not most, will fall below that number. Maybe there'll be a 5, 5, 5, which would be 125. You could have a 7, 10, 10, which would be 700. And so what's nice is when we're all done taking these 40 or 50 threats, you'll have them all laid out on a spreadsheet. It'll all be calculated for you. You're still going to see all of them, but you're going to see them in their right priority. What are the top 10? It'd be interesting if you were to just sort of draft out what you think the top 10 are now, and then run this process and see how close you are to the outcome. You could be spot on, but you could be shocked. I come in neutral, but the truth always comes to the top. And that's how we identify and then we prioritize key threats, and our focus groups help us, and all this starts to flow to the top. The wisdom starts to become clear. We now know what to hone in on when it comes to threats regarding people, regarding the process, and regarding the product or the services that you provide. I want to talk about that again very quickly. A church doesn't offer a product. A church offers a service. A company can offer both a product and a service. A chiropractic company, they offer a service. Sometimes they sell products, but mostly it's a service. If you create a product or you sell products, you offer products, and maybe you offer service and support. Whatever the case, you're providing something to the consumer. Our job is to see if there are threats regarding that service or product so that we can improve it. In a company, we would want to know, is there a way to improve the product or services that you're offering? In a church, it would mean the music department. It would mean the children's department, the adult, the discipleship, the preaching, the sermons, the method, the product. What can we do to make it better? And you may get extremely high ratings in every area, and I've seen that happen, and it's like, high five, you're doing great. Then we look at the process, which is, in a company, it's from the sale all the way till the end of billing. It's the shipping, it's the internal mechanisms. Where is the process bottlenecked or broken? In churches, the process is often regarding the internal staff. Is there good communication with the services offered, the classes, the upcoming care, the care program, the children's program? Is there good communication? Is there a good process involved? In some churches, they're wonderful. In some churches, they're terrible. And everything in between. And then we get to the people. And our assessment is going to uncover where there's strain and where relationships are weak and torn and maybe non-existent. People don't feel led. They don't feel valued. Maybe it's the leader isn't leading through relational leadership, as we'll talk more about. Maybe it's someone below the leader. Whatever the case, all the truth comes to the top. And then we'll have a chance to be gentle and work with those people that need to work on their leadership skills. And so there you go. That's how we take all this information, we put it into a very structured format. So by the time you see the data, it's not willy-nilly. You'll see not only how everything was rated, but you'll see why. You'll see all the data that came in raw, and you're going to see all the data that comes out of the focus groups. There's nothing hidden in this process. So that's it. I look forward to seeing you in the next segment, where we're going to talk about how to solve the threats. So we've talked about identifying the threats. We've talked about prioritizing the threats. But now we have to talk about solving them. I'll see you in the next segment.